Hello everyone, welcome to this little video that I am doing right now, and I know this is radically different from anything that I have done, up to this point, but if y'all have actually followed me, y'all know that I do tend to kind of jump around on projects. I think it's a part of my ADD that, I just, for one, get bored with things, and so want to try different, move to different projects and stuff. But also, plus, my brain is constantly always working, and so sometimes I need to just find ways to just try to keep it occupied. And and this is one of my ways of attempting to try to keep my brain occupied. All these little thoughts and stuff that go in my mind. It's probably no big surprise to y'all that I am definitely a big movie buff. I think I have mentioned it before in past videos, and even if you look through this channel, you will see some of the movies that I filmed when I was much younger. So I've always loved, movies, and I'm one that when I go into movies, I tend to be either, very critical about them. Well, not critical in a bad way, but, critique them, point out good things, bad things about the movies or what have you. Point out flaws that I felt were in the movie or things that I would have done differently. So, I'm always doing that, so my mind's always racing when it comes to things like that. And so I thought that, while I'm working on projects, which like right now I've actually got two projects going on. This one right here, which I will have a video out shortly, and another one which I'm actually 3D printing stuff for. While I'm working on that, in between me doing videos or filming those videos, I have some dead space. So I felt like, well, why don't I go ahead and turn on my camera and actually go ahead and do this. Now, before I get to the movie review, just want to go ahead and kind of say that on this particular channel, this is not something that I'm going to do regularly. In fact, this may be the only video that I will release on this channel in this regard, because instead what I've decided to do is I started another channel, which the link will be down in the description below, where that will be the channel that I will be posting all of my little, movie reviews, movie critiques, ideas of how I would have done things differently in the movies, etc., etc. But I just felt like that for right now is kind of a teaser trailer, you might probably say, to kind of let y'all know that I am indeed doing this. I decided to go ahead and release this video on this channel first, but this video, a version of this video, will also be on the other channel as well. So if you like hearing my thoughts and my ideas and my reviews, then and y'all would like to see more, then go ahead and go to the other channel and kind of keep an eye out on that one. So let's go ahead and get to the movie review. So if it's probably not obvious to y'all out there, I am kind of up there in age, or I'm at least up there in age to where I do remember when the first original Crow movie came out. I was a big fan of that movie, absolutely loved it, was, really devastated when I heard that Brandon Lee died while making this movie. I was a big fan of his father, Bruce Lee, and, and even though that this isn't a review for that movie, I'm just going to say is that the original Brandon Lee, The Crow, was an awesome, awesome movie. I feel like that was, or it still is, one of the, if not probably the best comic book movie adaptation movies of all time. But that's just my opinion. Opinions are like belly buttons. Everybody has one, but that's just my opinion. It's a movie that I always watch whenever I get the chance, especially when I'm on YouTube. If there's a clip from that movie, I always want to sit back and watch it. I own the movie, and just a big fan of the movie. And the reason why I'm saying that is because as a fan of the original movie, it is was very difficult for me to try to walk in to this movie, to this Crow movie here, without, with an open mind, and trying not to, trying to let it compare it to it in itself, and not, make correlations to the original Crow movie. So that was very difficult, but I tried to do the best that I can. So, with that being said, my review of the movie is of this. Let's go through that first, and then I'll kind of give you my opinions why. I felt like it was an okay movie. So, not a great movie. I wouldn't even go as far as saying it was a good movie. But it was an okay movie. And I feel like that still some of my biases were still there. As somebody that probably didn't watch the original Crow movie may have watched this movie and get a completely different, take of the movie. They'll probably have a completely different, position of the movie. But I thought it was an okay movie. It's one of those movies to where when I left the theater, I honestly said to myself, I probably should have waited until it was on streaming. Wait until it's on one of those little services where I'm already spending $9 a month to go watch. I didn't really feel like that I got my money's worth for going to the theater and watching it. But if I was to have watched it at home in my house, then I felt like that, then it probably would have been a little bit more worth my time and my money. But that's kind of the overall review of it. So, okay, not good, not great, but still not terrible. It was definitely not a terrible movie in the regards, and it was definitely not one that, sometime during the movie I was hoping it was over, or, I was on the verge of wanting to leave. So far, there's only been one movie that I've went to a theater to go watch that I've actually had to force myself to stay to watch the whole movie. This wasn't it. So, but why do I think that? Well, guess I'll first start off with this, in that I felt like that the movie that we got was probably not the movie that was intended for us to get. And I'm saying this not as strictly just as a fan of the original Crow movie entirely, and I'm not against, reboots or reimaginings or anything like that. Oh no, I feel like that, sequels, are definitely a good thing when the story can continue to be told, when there is a story to continue to be told. I feel like that reimaginings is okay if somebody legitimately feels like that, hey, I can, tell a very similar story but in a different way. I have no problem with that. Or even reboots, sometimes a movie has just been out for way too long, and so somebody thinks, well, to kind of bring it back, let's reboot it. But I legitimately don't feel like that this movie was one of those movies where it really fit underneath any of those regards. So, and some of it does, I will say. I say that it has nothing to do with me being a fan of the original movie, and in one regard, yes, it does. So I may not be 100%, telling the truth on that, but I feel like that the movie we got is not the movie that we were intended. And this is what I mean by that. The analogy that I have used with people is that this movie, I felt like, was that somebody at one point in time said they wanted to make a cake. And they already had all the ingredients to make a cake. But then at some point in time, somebody says, you know what, we don't want to make a cake, we want to make a pie instead. Still a dessert, but they, still involved baking, but they wanted to make a pie. But the problem is that they didn't go out to get brand new ingredients. They didn't start you know, from scratch. They just like, well, we're going to just try to do what we can with what we got to make a pie. So they took all the ingredients that they had for the cake, put together, and they made something that resembled a pie. They, it might slightly smell like a pie, and it might probably taste like a pie, but because it, the intention all from the get go wasn't to make a pie, it's not a pie. I mean, it's a terrible pie, you know. And if they would have just continued on with making a cake, then it would have been a lot better. And the reason on why I am going with that thought is because I feel like, and I know that some people out there agree with me on the internet, is that this should not have been a reboot of the original Crow movie, which obviously that's what they were trying to go for, because they named the characters Eric Draven and Shelley Webster from the original movies. I feel like that if they would have went ahead and said, no, this is not a reboot of the Crow movie, this is instead an adaptation of the Crow comic book, Wicked Prayer, then I think it would have been a lot more received. I think that original fans of the fans of the original movie would have been okay with that. And I think that even just by doing that, and what I mean by doing that, if they would have leaned into that mythos, into that storyline just a little bit more, we would have gotten a good movie. Would it still been a great movie? I really don't know. But I think it would have been upgraded from an okay movie to a good movie. So this is where I'm coming from when I say that I feel like that this is all the ingredients were there. So just a real quick little summary of, if you don't know about the comic book, The Crow Wicked Prayer, is that inside the comic book, it's a radically different story from the original Crow movie. And I'm going to try to summarize as much as possible. It's about a man named Michael Corbin that dies. Him and his wife are murdered by two people, I think maybe three. And Michael Corbin is the one that comes back as the Crow. But in the Crow mythos is slightly changed in that the crows are still there, but his power, it actually gives explanation for his power, and that is with this stuff that's called Gorgon blood, and it is bestowed upon him by a Greek god called Coronis. So he comes back and he's able to be invincible and have strength and all this other type of stuff that the crows do, but he's only limited as long as he continues to have the Gorgon blood, as long as it doesn't wear out. Like I said, it's a completely different comic book in that it's told by three different perspectives. The Crow's, or Michael Corbin's perspective of one of the murderers who is feeling sorry for what he did, and from a police officer. And I think that if you look at what we have from this movie and from that comic book, then by all means, I feel like that's where the Wicked Prayer comic books is where a lot of these ingredients came from. And I mean, if we look at through the movie, inside the movie, what we have, for one, is where the Crow's power comes from. There's a scene inside the movie where the Crow dies again, and he goes into this afterlife, and he is met by this person in the afterlife that is kind of his guide. I've heard, correlation that it was supposed to be what the Skull Cowboy was supposed to have been in the original movie. And he sits there and he tells him, it's like, all right, I'm going to be able to send you back. And he puts his hands on him and he says, with this black blood you shall get your vengeance. Or he says something to those lines, but I know he says, with this black blood. And you see this black goo, which is supposed to be the black blood, overtake Eric in the movie and go into his body. And when he comes back the second time from the dead, he seems to be a little bit more energized, a little bit more powerful. He seems to be healing a lot faster. He seems to be a little bit stronger than he was before. He's actually now, I think that was the real time that he actually becomes the Crow and not just some undead being, you know. And that's where the movie really starts to kick off. The black blood in the movie, I think, was the ingredient from the comic book Wicked Prayer of the Gorgon blood. And in fact, in the movie, you see scenes where, as Eric is taking damage, I mean, he's bleeding a lot, but there's also black goo that bestows upon him. And even the bad guy takes some of that black blood away from him. And I feel like that is also an ingredient left over from the whole Gorgon blood. You know, in the comic book, the Gorgon blood runs out, you're pretty much back to dead. You know, I feel like that was an ingredient that was in the movie, or they could have leaned more into that as part of the mythos. Even the character that I was talking about, the guide that was in the spirit realm for Eric, his name is Kronos. In the comic book, it's Coronis that's responsible for the Gorgon blood, and in this movie, we have a character named Kronos who bestows with him this black blood. Once again, I feel like that was definitely an ingredient where this was supposed to have been wicked prayer, not wicked, yeah, Wild Justice, not Wicked Prayer. Wicked Prayer is another movie. A Wild Justice movie adaptation. Even the look of Eric Draven with all the tattoos, the short hair, people said that, you know, him going around without a shirt on for most of the movie. Especially when he becomes the Crow again, everybody was pointing out that he looks more like the character from the Wicked Prayer, or Wild Justice comic book. The only difference is that in the comic book, it's the tattoos is because he has the power, the Gorgon blood. While in the movie, he has the tattoos because he's just tattooed up. But still, I feel like that was another ingredient. And there are a bunch of other ingredients that I could talk about that I think that points to that they were actually going to try to give us this Wicked Prayer or Wild Justice. I keep confusing the two. Adaptation. But somebody in Hollywood, somebody at some point in time said, nope, we're not doing this. We're going to try to lean more and redo this as almost a reboot from the first movie, because then fans would be like, oh my goodness, they're redoing the whole movie, which I think it was a terrible idea. And if that was the case, which I know they do that in Hollywood, I've heard that that's what they did with Crow, City of Angels, which was a good movie. Better than okay, but not great. Definitely not on par with the original movie, but it could have been a lot better if they probably would have stuck with the original intention of the movie. And I think they did the same thing with this one. And that's what I mean, that if they would have leaned more into that, we would have gotten a good movie. And I would have been, me being a fan of the original movie, would have been perfectly okay with that. No, it's not Eric Draven. It's not Brandon Lee's The Crow. It's not it's not even James O'Barr's The Crow. It is a completely different telling of the Crow universe. It's kind of like Prey with Predator. Prey is obviously within that same universe. It has the same characters, but it almost expresses a different mythos from a different period of time. If they would have done that, something like that with this movie, I think it would have been a lot better. But we got what we got. Now, does that mean that I hated the movie entirely? No, once again, I said it was an okay movie. I felt like that some of the acting was done good. There were times that it fell flat. Bill Skarsgård, I felt like, did a decent job with the character. Definitely not an Eric Draven type character, but with the character that was obviously written for him, I felt like that he did a good job. F.K. Twigs, I think that she did a pretty good job also as well, once again, with the character that she was given as it was probably written. Danny Huston, he's somebody that I've seen, and I felt like if he would have channeled maybe a little bit more of what we saw him in with 30 Days of Night, he probably would have done a little bit of a better job as the character that he was in the movie. And that is, and he was a character. He was a weird character. He was somebody that um, actually had, you know, he was actually he himself was almost immortal as long as he would continue sending people to hell. So, and I'll come back to that inside a minute. So, the acting was okay. The atmosphere, maybe I'm a little bit too nostalgic for kind of the dark look of what we've had in the original Crow, and I felt like that. This one, it was a lot of it was there was quite a few scenes that was in the daytime or well lit or what have you. Maybe they could have probably given a little bit of a darker atmosphere. It was all right. But there were some good parts inside the movie. There were some good scenes inside the movie. In fact, my favorite scene inside the movie was the part where he actually is, once again, he becomes, this is where he really becomes the Crow, is where he's brought back to Earth for a second time. He just took out a bunch of bad guys, and he sees some tattooing that he starts to put on his face, and he grabs a sword and everything. He grabs a sword, and he puts on the jacket and stuff like that. And all the while he's doing that, there's this, it bounces back and forth between a scene inside an opera house, and it is all done from this beautiful song by Enya. And I felt like it was a great song for the scene, in the way that the Crow was being reborn, as some of the bad guys thought that he was gone and dead. But yeah, I felt like it was a beautifully done scene. So the contrast with the dark atmosphere of him becoming the Crow and the light atmosphere of these people in nice suits and stuff, getting ready to go witness or go attend an opera, I felt like was just beautifully done. That was a good scene that actually gave me some goosebumps inside the theater. And there were some other scenes in there that I think that were well done, with the atmosphere, with the choice of the soundtrack or the music that was behind it and everything. So I felt like all that, those were moments that brought the movie back up into the okay realm. But there were scenes, though, that stopped it, in my opinion, from becoming a good movie. And the one point that I will actually really say that I was thoroughly disappointed in was the ending scene. Once again, as I mentioned, is that we had two characters that was effectively immortal. We had the Crow, who was immortal, because he was still out there trying to do his job. In fact, one of his jobs was to try to kill this man that has immortality with the deal that he made with the devil. And you had the Crow, and you had the main and you had the main bad guy, who himself was also immortal. So you had these two immortal people that were locked up, and I felt like that would have been an awesome battle. When I finally saw them meet together, I'm like, ooh, we're going to have a good battle where you're going to have two people that just can't seem to kind of, they can't fight each other. They can't, that neither one of them can really die, and they each have, something that they're trying to do, something that they're trying to accomplish, and this goes back into the whole realm of, what they probably could have and should have done right from the get-go with this movie, but for whatever reason they didn't. But they didn't give us that. We ended up not getting that. Instead, it was a little bit of a scuffle. The man does absorb some of the black blood, and then they go through a window, and now they're in this afterlife, purgatory deal, and the bad guy gets, I guess, taken back to the underworld by being drugged down via a bunch of snake-like creatures, which was, to me, was almost very Patrick Swayze Ghost-esque. But that's what we got, and I felt like that was a bad ending, and the ending continues once again, spoilers, everybody. So if you don't want to be spoiled, probably stop it right now. It's probably too late for a bunch of y'all. In that, Shelley's soul is brought back, I guess, from hell, which was what Eric was trying to fix in the first place, is redeeming Shelley's soul. And she is brought back into the real world, brought back to life, but it's like a time traveling type situation where she's brought back to the moment of death, where she's arisen and awakened and she can move on with her life, but Eric is still dead. That completely confused me. But it's not really a time travel deal, because if you look on Eric's hand, there's an additional tattoo that he puts on during the movie that wasn't there when he died. So it was part time travel, part not time travel. I really don't know. So that kind of confused me, and that left me going, I don't know what to think about that movie. So, but all in all, that's kind of what I thought about the movie. If they would have just, if I'm correct, and they did have intention for this to be a adaptation of the Wild Justice comic book, and if they would have leaned more into that, I think we would have gotten a good movie. And I still feel like that, because the ingredients are all there, if you get somebody that edits it right, if they reworked the whole movie right from the get-go and maybe film some minimal scenes, they could release maybe like a director's cut or a different cut to this movie that would probably raise it up to where the story would make a little bit better sense. It wouldn't be disrespectful to the original Crow, and it probably would be a good movie. And I already kind of have inside my mind some ideas of what that would look like, of how I would redo this whole movie, and re-edit it to try to get a better movie out of it. And who knows, maybe I might actually probably do that in a different video. Y'all let me know if y'all would like to probably hear kind of how I would actually recut the movie and redo the movie to make the movie better. But it's I'm just going to just leave it at that, stick with that's what I felt like we got. We did not get the movie that they originally intended for us to get. So, but it is what it is. So I'm going to leave on that. So hope that y'all enjoyed it. Hope that y'all like. I mean, if y'all agree with me, and y'all let me know in the comments what y'all probably thought about the movie. Do y'all agree with me? Do y'all feel like that this movie obviously was a adaptation of the other comic book, Wicked Prayer? Or do y'all think that I'm completely way off the mark? Did y'all really enjoy the movie? Just kind of let me know. If y'all would like to see more of this, and once again, just kind of let me know also in the comments below. But go over to the other channel. Well, there I'm going to have a couple of other videos, a couple of other reviews. In fact, I already have an idea of what my next review is going to be, because I just got finished watching another movie recently that I want to do a review on. So I'll probably be doing that next. But yeah, but said jump on that channel and be watching there. So, but I just want to say that if y'all did watch this video, I want to say thank y'all very much for watching. Thank you for sticking with me through it. I really kind of appreciate you hearing me out, and this gave me a chance to kind of finally get my thoughts out, or part of my thoughts. And I have a lot more thoughts about this movie, but I just want to keep it like that, because I think this video is probably already going to be too long. And I know on my other channel, until I think to a certain point, I'm going to be limited, unless YouTube doesn't do that no more. It's limited on time-wise. But yeah, that's what I think. So keep an eye out on the other channel for that. If y'all are curious about what I'm making right here, just stay tuned to this channel, because this video is coming out as well as the other video for what I am 3D printing right now. So thank y'all very much for watching, and I will see y'all next time.